Hello.
First thing Cal said was, I don't want that table up there. So we'll do a little moving. I want to thank all of you all for having us. Obviously, John Calipari is glad to be here. And I want to say a step before we start about this book. I gave him a hard time. He called me a couple weeks ago and said, have you read the book yet? And I said, well, not yet. And I read it, and I've read all of his books. And I mean this when I say it. This is his best one, especially if you're a UK fan.
And my last one. Done.
Now, part of the reason I like it, Coach, is that you talk a lot about what I think is your thing that you do the best, which is assembling talent. So I guess I'd start with this. When you look to assemble your team, talk about what you do.
Well, in the recruiting process, and a lot of us in this room recruit to bring people to our businesses or to our companies. And I think the first thing is you want talented people. And the more talented they are when you meet them and you say, wow, this guy, this lady is really sharp, is really bright. She's the top of her field. She's moving to the top of her field. She will be the top of her field someday. That's who you want in your company. The question then becomes, what if we have 3 or 4 of those people? What if we have 4, 5, 6, 8 of those people? Well, if they work together and they can blend, all of a sudden, we're a little bit of a juggernaut. And for us, recruiting becomes, do they have the talent, the size, the ability to do what we do? But that's only a small part of it. The other part of it becomes, do they have the kind of character that they're going to have? Do they have the temperament, the ability to share, or do they make it all about themselves? I talk in the book about the red flags that we'll see. I mean, for all you women in the room, if I go recruit a young man and he disrespects his mother or grandmother, I'm out. Literally, the meeting will end right there. Because if he doesn't respect his mother or grandmother, he's not respecting me. And there's no way I can do the job I need to do in a short period of time. If I see a young man playing and he makes everybody on the team better, he accepts coaching, you can tell he's about his teammates, but he is so talented. You look at that and say, wow, I want that guy. I want him on my team. So they're red flags. They're a basis that we have to meet. And then I just want guys that have a passion for what we do. If a guy walks in and he never looks up from his feet, he has no passion about the game. In right now, the buzzword, does he love the game? That's the NBA. That's all they ask you. Does he love the game? Because the only way they'll get better is they love what they do. If they love what they do, they don't have to be as smart or as this, but they love what they do. They can overcome a lot of that. Every NBA team, first thing they ask me, does he love the game? Does he love playing? Does he love being at practice? The guys that walk on my team, if they were the last ones to come into practice every day, they're on the edge right now. Even if they're the most talented guys. The guys that are in there early and the last to leave make it. I don't know if that's the simple formula, but for us, over the 7 years I've been here, now 8, that's about what it's like.
You mentioned one of the things he does in this book is he takes the 38-1, the 2014-2015. And I don't know if you did this intentionally, but you tell stories about almost each player. One of them I want to focus on was Tyler Ulis. You said when you first saw Tyler Ulis, you thought, there's no way that kid can play, and then you watched him play. What made you change your mind, and why'd you make that decision?
Well, I think a lot of us, when we see a person, the first thing is it's our impression about what they look like. And then we think we know, because they look a certain way, that we're so smart, we know what that means. And the only way you can really get to know is to really spend time. And it's not just one glance, because that glance may be wrong. It's to really spend time. And it's not one meeting, it may be 10 meetings to where you really say, wait a minute. You may look at some of my players who are 6'10" and 250 and say, that's a grown man. No, he's 18 years old. He's not a grown man. But he may appear to be something that he's not. With Tyler Ulis, we're saying 5'9". We're saying 145. And you may say, he was 5'8", 140? Yeah, now what would you do if you're me and you know the kind of players I've coached and they say, you need to watch this kid? Come on. Watch who? This one right here? And I started watching him, and my first thing was, there's no way he can play for us. He's not big enough. I like big guards. I like guards that are big so you can switch pick and rolls. You can switch different things. They can scramble and guard somebody. And a lot of the stuff I do is, can the guy guard his position? If he can't guard his position, it's hard to play for us because I just can't take it. I know me. And if you can't guard your position, then I can't coach you because I'll lose my mind. So I watched him, and then I watched him again, and then I watched him in a high-level game against a guard they said was this unbelievable blah, blah, blah. And the kid got 40 and never backed down, made every right play, didn't turn it over, guarded big guys. I mean, I'm like, wait a minute. So when his father and he came down, everybody figured out we were recruiting him because, listen to me, if I get on an airplane, somebody's following that number. Wherever I go, they know where I am. Whatever I say in the home, it's on the internet within 4 minutes. If I call a kid...
You're welcome.
If I call a kid, I've offered him a scholarship, whether I did or not. I mean, it's crazy. So when people found out I was recruiting this kid, Tyler Ulis, they said, Cal's finally got a 4-year point guard. He's got a kid he'll have for 4 years. So when his father and he came down, I just, look, guys, I think you can really play. I think you're a talented person. I think you're a competitor. You have all the stuff, but you got to believe you're good enough to be here. And here's my one statement. If you think you're going to be here 4 years, don't you come here. Don't you even think about coming to Kentucky if you think you're going to be here 4 years. And his dad looked at him and he said, Coach, I'm ready to come now. And he's, after 2 years, he's in the NBA. If we'd have won 2 more games in the tournament, he would have been a first-round draft pick. At 5'8", 140, are you kidding me? At the end of the day, he's on a team with unbelievable guards, which is why he's not playing as much. They're all ours, okay? And when I call him, I just said, when he played well, I'll text him and just say, hey, you're doing great, man. He went 2 minutes a day ago and had 2 points and two assists. I mean, he says, I'm just waiting for my chance. So, you know, his story I'm telling to Sasha, you're not really getting minutes, but when you go in, you got to be better. You can't be like you are. Like, you think when you make it and you're in that league, you're just going to be a starter? You're going to be in the same position you're in now in that league, so get ready for it. Be able to step in the game and give something like Tyler Ulis. I look at the sheet that day. I said he had 2 points, 2 assists in 2 minutes. He went in ready. You got to be ready. So I would tell you all, just a quick story. Kid's walking down the street. Lady's on the other side of the street, and she's walking. She has her purse, and the kid has a hat on a little bit, and he's got his jeans and pants down a little bit. So he crosses the street and starts walking faster, and the lady's looking around, and she starts walking, and ma'am, you dropped your wallet. You know what I'm saying? You look at people a certain way, like I look at Tyler Ulis, and your mindset starts you can't have that kind of opinion until you really sit down and spend time and watch and evaluate. And then all of a sudden you say, I never thought I'd hire this kind of person, but you know what? By far the best. And the best thing for me, he coached that team last year. And they paid me.
The subtitle of your book is Coaching Extreme Talent. Last night, you may have seen Charles Barkley said, I believe Karl Towns and Anthony Davis will be the 2 best players in the NBA over the next decade. You talk a lot in the book about if you combine extreme talent with that love you talked about, that's where you get the special ones. Do you feel like those two guys are an example of that?
Well, the special ones that are comfortable in their own skin don't compete against a teammate. They compete against themselves. They're not worried what a teammate's doing. As a matter of fact, they're happy with their success. It doesn't infringe on their own success. Anthony Davis took the 4th most shots on this team. Karl Towns took the 5th most shots. Did you hear what he just said? They're going to be the best players in the NBA. They're both scoring 30 a game. They scored 14 a game here, 12, 11. I mean, they were just trying to be their best version without worrying about what a teammate did. Guy shot more than them. It doesn't matter. I'm comfortable in who I am. That's what sets those two apart. And others on my team. We've had 20 players leave after a year. 10 of them went to the NBA, and in their first year in the NBA scored more per game than they did here. What? It's about sharing. And so not only do we have talented kids, they're good enough, they feel comfortable enough in who they are that they share. I would also hope they know we have their back, so they don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. Coach had it. He's got this. He's going to put me in the best position I can be in. But, you know, every day I get a sheet on my desk in the morning of all the players in the league and how they did, our players, every morning. One day I added up, they had 155 points one day. So then it comes out, 7% of all the baskets scored in the NBA are by our guys. You know how stupid that is? And we're just getting started. It's year 7. And so, you know, you look at it, an Anthony Davis and a Karl Towns were willing to do less so others could do more, and it had no effect except the positive for them. And that's hard. It's the same with all the kids leaving. Look, you don't think I was worried what was going to happen, 5 guys left in the first round that first year? Like I knew that we'd go to the Final Four the next year? I didn't know. And you don't think that weighed on me like, wait a minute, how? And I just said, hey, look, I'm trusting. We're doing right by these kids. And if we do right by the kids, it'll be fine for the program, for our staff, and everybody else. And it's kind of played out that way. Kids have left. Great, 5 of you. And we're better next year. I mean, it is played out, and it's worked because of the kind of kids we've recruited, the challenges that they've had, we've been there for them, and they've been there for each other.
You talk in the book about how there used to be a coaching mentality that you have a system, you treat players, everybody the same. You said you now will treat players differently and give them rope depending on who they are, using the example of DeMarcus Cousins, obviously. Is that something you think is really important, that you do have to treat each player based on who they are?
Well, I put out a tweet. I was sitting at my desk. I had an off day yesterday. My mind races when I have an off day. I'm not focused on practice. And what I put out, I just put something together to send to the players and then I sent it to some recruits, and then I tweeted it. And basically it's when someone gives you their child, their precious child, you know, sometimes we get too concerned about the profession versus that child. And then it's not just teaching them basketball. It's not just being on a basketball court. I'm dealing with 18-year-old kids, 19-year-old kids who you think are adults and they know and they're confident. No, they're not. They're still not knowing who they are as a person, let alone a basketball player. Teaching them to have a curious mind so they become a lifelong learner. Teaching them what it means to create joy in their life. Teaching them, if you want to be happy continually, then be grateful continually. And then you'll be happy. And so teaching them all these other things aside from basketball, which we have to teach in this state because they didn't get to school until September. That first year took us really a lot of time to get going. But we went to the final game playing 4 freshmen, or starting 5 freshmen, I think. And then the next year they decide to come back, which surprised us. Willie and Alex comes back, surprised us. I had to talk last night about the platoons. I did that solely for kids because you're in my boat. Now you have 10 that all deserve to play. And you say, well, that's not how I do it. I only play 7, 8 guys. So 2 of these guys aren't playing. Who would they have been? Would you have not have played Aaron, who made all the baskets the year before to get you to the championship game? Would you have not have played his brother, who did what he did to get us to the championship game? Well, at the beginning of the year, you ready? Dakari and Willie and even Trey were way better than Karl Towns. Oh, don't play Karl Towns. That would have been real smart. Well, then don't play Devin Booker. Really, they're talking about him being an all-star. He stays 1 year, doesn't start, and is a lottery pick. Could have gone a pick lower, but now they're talking about him being an all-star. The only solution I could come up with is play them all, and you can't shuffle then. Then let them play together in groups. And that's what we did. Now, it killed us in recruiting. Oh, my gosh. Every coach, you really want to play 18 minutes, he's going to platoon you like he platooned them. You'll never. And so it was a battle that I just didn't feel like fighting, but we did, and we did okay. If I ever was in the position with 10, I'd probably do it again. I don't want to. I will tell you, it was easier to sub. 4 minutes, you go. You go. But again, I try to tell our staff, every decision we make has got to be based on what's right for these kids, not what's right for us. It's easier for us if we practice at this time. I don't care about us. It's easier if we don't do this in the morning because I really don't want to get what? What is best for them? Why are we getting them up at this time when we can do it at this time? Well, I like to be in the office early and then I can go home. What? This has nothing to do with us. Every decision has to be what is right for them. And then holding them accountable. And if you watch me coach, you know who's running this show. I mean, I'm making sure that they are doing what they're supposed to. And if they're not, I tell them immediately. Like, I don't wait. I tell them that moment, whether it be practice or a game, because I don't have time to mess around with you. We're trying to get this together in 3 months, not 3 years. Do what you're supposed to do for us. We want you to be your best version on and off the court. What does that look like? I'm going to help you and tell you. Well, I think it looks like that. No, it doesn't. Tuck your shirt in. That's not the best version of you. Tuck it in, please. Well, I think I can take half-court hooks. You can in practice before we start. But don't do it in a game. That's not the best version of you. So that's a lot of what we do. I had individual meetings yesterday where guys popped in, not all of them, about 5 of them. And to tell them, this is what the best version of you looks like. This is what we're trying to get to. You do these things. I had a meeting with my son. You know what I said to him? How are you doing this? You got to have the pressure of this. I don't think you're in front of 24,000 making threes. How are you doing this? In this environment, I said, the fans love you. Well, not all. You're not reading the internet, are you? Because my point is, the haters of me are going to hate on you. They don't even know who you are. Like, listen, how many Twitter followers do I have?
1.5 million.
I think it's 1.6.
You see, I like you did.
But of the 1.6, how many are haters?
1.3.
I mean, literally, probably 1 million are on there for one reason. They don't realize I've never seen one thing they tweet back at me. I could care less. But I'm telling him, you can't get into all that. You step in the game, the fans are ecstatic for you. And so having those meetings and trying to define what they do, and a lot of this stuff we talk about in the book. When you talk about my guys, I talk about servant leadership, what it really means to lead. And I'm trying to teach every player on my team to lead. Lose in this state. People aren't real happy, but it's both. And the stuff that we're trying to do here, it's different. We're starting 4 freshmen. I mean, what? And they're saying they're the best and they should be the best. We're starting 4 freshmen. Now, other teams are trying, it was the worst thing in the world to do, play freshmen and have them leave after you. And then other teams started doing it and it's become okay. That's fine. But it is different for all of us coaches, how we have to approach this. You're not dealing with a veteran kid, it's Malik Monk. I got to let him go a little bit. This kid is so talented. I had to grab him yesterday. I watched the tape. He went 6 minutes without getting a shot. He started the game. They couldn't guard him. So now I got to keep an eye on that to make sure that he doesn't go 6 minutes without getting a shot or a ball or an opportunity. And he is not selfish. So he's not saying anything. He's just happy and bubbly and how he is. But for us to be what we are supposed to be and me to do my job, those are the kind of things I've got to be able to do, and it makes it different.
You mentioned being in Kentucky. You talk in the book about the Harrison twins, and I'm curious, what do you do?
Andrew is playing. He's starting
great.
in Memphis. He's got a 3-year contract, which I wish now he hadn't signed, because if he hadn't signed, he would have been making, but it's okay. He signed a 3-year deal. He is now starting in Memphis and playing well. A friend of mine sat next to the bench, came and called me and said, Cal, the players love him. They want him on the team. You can just tell you ought to be proud of this kid, and I really am.
So what did you do? They took a lot of criticism here. How did you as a coach, knowing what they were getting from media, saying they should play Ulis and Booker and not them, from the fans, how do you deal with that when you're trying to mentor someone that's getting criticism from the outside?
Well, I try to tell them to do what I do is I don't look at it. So there may have been more criticism than I even knew, but I just made sure they knew I have your back. Like there's whatever they want to say, it doesn't matter. You can't deal with it. I tell them Twitter. Does anybody follow me on Twitter? Anybody follow me on Facebook? Okay, some Facebook followers. I never read any of that stuff, just so you know. Now, there's not a tweet that does, they're all my tweets now. Nothing goes out that is not mine. There's not a Facebook post that is not mine, but I don't do it. My iPad is continually on. It's never off because I don't know how to turn it on. So I just reach, so you understand, I don't have a computer. I guess, do people still have computers or they just use iPads?
Not a ton, but yes, they do.
Okay. So, no, serious. I mean, so if you respond to a tweet, I've never in the history seen a response to my tweets. I have never seen a response to anything I put out on Facebook. Is there a Snapchat something?
There is a Snapchat.
Yes. Am I on Snapchat?
You're not on Snapchat.
I'm not on
I don't think
Snapchat?
so.
And I tell them the same. I bring in social media people to talk to them. My own son, he didn't understand if you retweet something, that means you support what they said. Well, I retweeted it. Well, you can't retweet that because now you stand for that. Why is that? Because that's the way it works. So I'm not, and I try to tell these kids, if you worry about what they're saying in the stands about you, you'll be up there with them. You can't be worrying about that. They don't, look, I've really mellowed to where I used to be. Because if I got attacked about something, it never moved me the other way. Like, oh, really? Then you're going to see more of that. That's how I was. Now you can't, I don't waste time, and I try to tell them not to waste time. And so with those two, they got here late. The reason is at some point in their life, they may be thrown in that position, and I want to make sure, John, they have something to fall back on, even if they weren't the leader. Were you the leader in Miami?
No.
Were you the leader in Dallas?
No.
Are you a leader now?
Yeah.
But he learned. He just walked up and said, I learned from my experience in my business. Well, I want every one of my kids to know, including my son, what leadership really means. And so that part of this book is pretty clear in what we're trying to do. Now, what's happened for Dom? He just elevated his game. What's happened for Derek? What's happened for Isaac? What's happened for Bam playing against Isaac? What's happening for Sasha? They all are getting better. Sasha sent something to his mother that she saw me and said, he said, I've gotten better in the last 2 months. I've improved more in the last 2 months than I have my whole life. Isaac's mom looks at him and says, he doesn't even look like my son anymore. And so for us as coaches, that's what it is. How do we help him become the best version? How do we get a guy like Dom to say, I understand I'm not on the same path as John Wall? I remember we had John Hood. John Hood played against more NBA players than anybody in the history of this game that wasn't professional. Because of all the guys you think about who he went against in practice and got dunked on and got, stolen by, to where, he's doing well in the business world right now, the same thing, has a great smile on his face. He was a kid with his head down a little bit when we got here. But that's a part of what we have to do. And having guys like Dom and Derek, Derek's got to just get more consistent. Just be more, we got to know when we put you in a range of what we're getting. Would you say that if you run something? I don't need to have you at the top, but I can't have you come in one day down here and then one day up there. I don't know what I'm getting. I don't know how. I need you to be more consistent. I need you to be that guy that walks in and you're a range, you're going to be in here. Yeah, none of us are going to be at the absolute top of our game every day. But you can't have a fluctuation that's crazy and be with us because we're expected to win every game, correct? By 30. If we don't, we're all like, why didn't we win by 30? Like, let me give you this. The team we just played, I was scared to death. I didn't sleep for a day. I didn't think we could beat them. I watched the tape. I watched them beat Alabama. I watched them beat Brigham Young. I watched them beat Rhode Island, who was a top 25 team. And they had the game they lost at Oregon, like their first game of the year, they had a chance to win at Oregon. And I'm like, we just lost. We had no energy. We didn't share the ball. Is that who we are? Or are we this other team? And now all of a sudden we beat them pretty good. And everybody, Valparaiso, we should have beat them by 25. We were up 30. We should have. What? I whistled and skipped down the hallway as I left the game. So, just trying to get us more consistent and get Derek and I want every one of these kids to succeed. There's nothing that would make me happier than seeing Dom being a professional player or Derek, who's never been this committed to the game. Derek has never been committed like this, ever. Like in the gym, stays longer, works on his shooting. He's still got not as consistent as he needs to be, but way better than he was.
Just a couple more. I want to ask you about, after that UCLA game, I've watched you for 8 years, and you were a little different than I've seen you in terms of saying, maybe we got away from our routine, et cetera. We didn't do the shoot around. You seemed surprised because you felt like maybe you had taken a few steps with this group that they weren't ready for. Am I right about that?
Yeah. Do you ever have your team and you have an opinion of what they are, and then all of a sudden something really comes at you and you figured out, like, we need more training. We weren't ready for this. Do you ever have that? Like, that's what hit me. Like, yeah, we were rolling, and I'm going to tell you, I need you all to do me a favor, and I need you to Google 2009 my press conference when I was hired. And I need you to look at me then. And I need you to say, oh my gosh, look what we've done to this guy. What were we talking about? That's what.
They're talking about you thought you were one thing and you weren't there yet. And you got old.
You see what you've done to me?
Two things.
So I walked off the court and I knew I got infatuated with these dudes too. I was watching just like you saying, oh my gosh. And then all of a sudden, I back up off of some drills because we need to be more into situational work, you know what I'm saying? Like advanced stuff versus the fundamentals day to day, stay with them. I got away from some of that stuff and went to the higher level stuff because I thought they were fine until we played that team. And now all of a sudden, we don't share it as much. It shows we weren't prepared. I'll give you an example. If they're passing, I don't need to run continuity stuff. They're already passing. But if they don't pass, like one pass and the guy tries to shoot and one pass, well then as a coach you got to say, whoa, all right, now we're running this to make sure the ball moves. So you can't shoot the ball until you pass it 4 times in the continuity. Does that make sense to you? Okay? We didn't have any of that because they had passed all year until that game. Then they didn't pass, and we weren't prepared for that to say, stop, run this offense. You will pass it now because you got no choice. We weren't ready for that. There were things defensively that we got away from, scrambling on defense, drills that I do every day. We went back to them. And now we're even going back to them more today and tomorrow. Charge loose ball, like a drill that I've always done. But we were diving on the floor. You saw us up 30 diving and taking. Why? The drills, we don't need the drills. I'm wasting time. No, my gosh, what was I thinking? And again, they're 18 and 19. They're going to revert back to what they know best. And if I haven't trained them, what they know best is what they did in AAU in high school. I'm trying to help them develop habits. Just so you know, again, my overriding job is to help them develop habits. And that's not just basketball, but it is basketball too. Habits, how they respond to certain things without thinking because they're habits. Like I said, the number one habit, I asked the guys, do you jump out of bed or do you roll out of bed? And they all bust out laughing. I said, at some point in your life, you got to jump out of bed. You want to be good, you got to be jumping out of bed. Talk about joy to them. How do you create joy? You want to create joy, just do something for somebody else and not expect anything in return, and do something every day that way, just even if it's one person. Be about everyone else instead of yourself. You want to be grateful, I said it earlier. We talk about on that basketball floor, the habits they have to create so that they do it naturally. And I thought we were there until the game ended, and then I said we're not. So a lot of stuff, I went back, and I said, this isn't your fault. We didn't do this. Whose fault is that? They all point to me. Yours. No, they love doing that. Yours. It's not mine. You know. But again, I want them to know also it's okay to be wrong so someone else can be right. It's okay to take responsibility. It's not getting eaten by the alligator. It's all right to take responsibility, to be bigger than the situation. I want them to be able to say, at times, Coach, this isn't on you. This was us. This team's not ready to say that. Like, I'll take responsibility, and I'll walk in the locker room. They'll say, this wasn't you, Coach. This was us. That's when I know they've been empowered. And the only way for any of us to really lead is to teach the habits so they can be empowered, so we can step back and just kind of push them back in line when they kind of move out. And that's, this book was written, and again, I told my wife, you slap me in the face if I even think about another book. But this book was written based on people coming at me saying, how in the world are you doing this? How in the world are you taking all these McDonald's All-Americans who are shooting 30 balls a game, the center of attention, they think about themselves all day, they go to bed and dream about themselves all night, and now you have them sharing and being, how are you doing this? What? And then you're doing it every year, a new team. What are you doing? That's what the book is. And my hope is, if you're leading a team and you want the best, that you're not afraid to go get. Let me get the best of all of them. I want everyone in here that we're banging off walls. And again, you ready? They may not dress exactly. They may not look exactly. But they got a curious mind. And they are passionate. And people want to be around them. If you watch people that go to the water cooler and everybody scatters when they come, I'm not sure you really want them in there, okay? But when the guy goes to the water cooler and 4 people follow him and they're laughing and Like what, Alan? That's good. Which one are you, the guy that goes and they scatter? But if that person, people want to be around, and especially if they're really sharp. Here's how I've been blessed. One, I've been blessed to be the coach of Kentucky. I mean, it took me 20 years to get this job. 20 years. I've been blessed to be this coach. Look, to have this opportunity and then to make it about these kids and have this stage for all these kids and families, what a blessing. The other blessing I've had throughout my career, my best players have all been good guys. Like good-hearted, good guys. So I haven't had to deal. Like, how about you have your biggest employee, your best, the earner, the guy that really gets it done, but it's a pain in the butt to see him every morning. Every morning before you come in, you're just like, damn, I got to look at this dude today. I mean, really? I mean, life's too short. It's too hard. Every day, how about we walk in and we're smiling and you're going to bed with a smile on your face because you enjoy the people you're around. My best players have been unbelievably good people who obviously share. Anthony Davis could have taken 30 shots a game. What could I have said? Or Carl Towns said, I want to start. I'm not settling for this. But we didn't have that. And my hope is through this, you take some nuggets and it helps, and how we're doing this, you get a better idea of the job I'm doing and trying to do with these kids. It's not just about the profession that I'm in. This is about how I'm doing with them. I said I went from the business of basketball to the business of helping families. And that's changed. Let me just say this. My life has become easier. We don't win every game. And just one quick one. Before the UCLA game, I thought, I could coach till I'm 70. This stuff is fun. These dudes are all coaching in their 70s. I'll coach in my 80s. They want to coach. And then we lose to UCLA. I'm like, why am I still doing this? I don't need to do this. This is not so. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to cut this off. We're going to do the book signing stuff here. If you want to take a picture, we'll have people, you just give your camera, have it set to whatever, and we'll just come in, and there's chairs beside me. We'll sit down and we'll take a picture, and I'll sign as many books as you have. Literally, this will take about 20 minutes, 25. I got this down to a science, believe me when I tell you.
He's a machine when it comes to
So
this.
I'll do all that, and I appreciate you being here today. I appreciate all of you who've purchased books. That's great, and I hope they help.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks.